Bey. I'm a visual artist, painter, printmaker, illustrator, currently based in San Diego, out of Richmond, Virginia. So in the summer of 2020, I applied to the City Arts program, Norfolk Arts exhibition call. So I was intending for this to potentially happen in 2021, but it looked like they had planned to do the exhibitions or schedule them for the next 2 years. So actually when I got the call or I got the email that I was selected to participate for one of the exhibitions, it was for 2022. So I actually had to plan to do the exhibition in 2 years, and then I moved in 2021 to San Diego, so it took a bit of work to try to organize and plan to get back and actually bring this exhibition back to Norfolk. So in end of 2018, I was looking for opportunities just to explore the world, do some residencies, get some experience outside of what I was used to between grad school and just doing exhibitions. So I just went on a search and started looking for, typing in artist residency programs, and I came across one for Cuba that was hosted by, or put on by Rooster G&M, which is a media company based out of Spain. And they do internships and residencies between Spain and Havana, Cuba. And so I applied for it and was expecting to maybe hear back a couple months later, but I heard back like a couple days later. And so I had to kind of make a decision pretty quickly on whether I wanted to participate or not because it costs money. And I just hopped right onto it. I just jumped onto it and kind of put my faith in the fact that I really wanted to take this opportunity and take advantage of being selected to go, kind of go travel to Cuba and participate in this program. It was busy. It was active. When I first got there, it was storming. There was just a lot of movement. It was bustling from the airport all the way into Havana. There was just like people outside, people doing things. And that was like one of the early inspirations when I got there. I just soaked in. And then just seeing, walking outside at 6 or 7 o'clock at night, and just seeing, children outside playing. The city was just really active. And so regardless of how what economic status individuals were at, people were outside just like experiencing the world. And so I really soaked a lot of that in. Over the 10 days I was there, with multiple challenges I had to face. One of them being the language barrier and trying to take a little bit of Spanish that I knew to get me through some conversations with either trying to order food. Being a vegetarian in Cuba is not very easy. Luckily there was a spot called Algarabia that had a veggie burger, and I became a regular there in 10 days where I walked up and they would just be like, veggie hamburger, well, they said it in Spanish, but a veggie hamburger. So that was one of the things that I really wanted to develop there when I got there. And so it turned out to be a really great trip. A lot of the things that you think about Cuba exist there, but maybe not in the way that it gets romanticized. The old school cars, they exist there, but there's a lot of beat up cars too. So you see all of it. You see all sides of it, and then getting out of the city a little bit into some of the countryside and getting to see how people live in a little bit slower neighborhoods. It's a really beautiful place to go to and see how people just live and exist. So there's endless stories that can be told about how what Cuba's like, but that's a good gist of it, I would say. What inspired me artistically were the people. From the first people I met, getting into a vehicle to travel to my bed and breakfast, all the way until the owner of the bed and breakfast inviting us over for dinner on our last day. Just the relationships that I was building with people really inspired me on what I wanted to create from my experience there in Cuba. So it was between that and just like the juxtaposition of rebuilt buildings and dilapidated buildings being like right next door to each other. There was this kind of sense of the life cycle there where, a man had told me that I met, you could, he was pointing from his building where, some friends of his had died from the building collapsing. So, and this was right around the corner from the bed and breakfast I was staying at. So I dealt with a lot of some of that, the good and bad of Cuba. And so in a place that often gets kind of seen as a tourist attraction or a place to go, when I was there, I was there for work. And so I was looking for something deeper, and I really got it. So a lot of it was just the people and the way that they were working to survive or to live, and the way they found joy in every moment, even though they might have had little, really inspired me to want to retell some of those stories and how it affected me. So the selfie series is about people that I met when I got to Cuba. And so my intention for the project that I got when I got there was to have individuals take my phone, take a selfie, and use that as a reference for some of the paintings. And the challenge for that was trying to communicate my concept from English into Spanish so that someone else can understand it in Spanish. And it just was a bit of a challenge to try to explain all of that. Like, I'm doing this project about the effects of social media and some of the symbolisms that you see from the way people pose and present themselves in social media, and then trying to get people to understand that so they can take a selfie for my reference. And so what I found was the relationships that I was building is what was much more impactful than having these people take these individual shots of themselves. And so I found myself communicating and having and just building relationships and getting to know people, and then taking photos with them. And some of them might have been people that I met early on in the trip and then found them later during the trip and got that photo with them. Some of them I just met, right there on the street, and was able to get a photo with them. And they all have their own different stories. And so it's a series about kind of the relationships that I built with people while I was there. Took these photos with them, and kind of retelling that experience through some of the background imagery and the setting that I may have met them in, or some of the stories they might have told me about their experience living in Cuba. The necks in my work, if you look back at my previous work or my early work, the necks are the elongated neck is present. It's a kind of a symbolism of confidence and beauty in this bridge between the virtual and the physical world. And in the case of this exhibition, it sort of kind of references the traveling of of myself going to these spaces and coming back to the States. And so it's like going to Cuba, coming back to the States, and this is the journey that I took in and out of that space. And so I might have been there physically, but when I return to it, it's through a digital or virtual space. And it's and so in my works or in the images that kind of reflect my likeness, you kind of get this kind of faded image because it's this in and out. I'm this tourist that showed up and left, whereas the individuals that were there are still there. They still have to live there. And so their necks are much more kind of solid and opaque in the design. They because their presence is still there in Cuba. And so it's this me retelling their story back through these virtual spaces, but it's still them being present there. And so the necks in my work have always been about this navigation of these of various spaces and just kind of putting a manifestation to it. My favorite pieces in the show. I'd rather say I have favorite stories, because as far as favorite pieces, I painted them all. I think I have something I love about them, but some of them have really unique stories, I believe, that probably just stood out the most to me. So one of them is actually the last one I painted, called Selfie of an Angel, My Heart is Your Heart. This was actually the first person I met in Cuba, just as I was like out exploring, trying to just gain some feeling about the culture and the space and away from like the other participants in the residency. And so it was this guy, Angel, that invited me into his home, fed me some food, and I had a really great experience. He showed me his life and so openly, and he spoke English so well that it really pulled me into the experience. And he was just so excited just to see like a dark-skinned man standing out in front of his house. And I was looking at, I actually happened to be looking at these very popular stairs in Cuba that like lead up to this restaurant. And so I was like, oh, I want to take a picture of the stairs because everybody takes pictures of these stairs. And right across the street, there he lived. And so he just kind of like popped out and we just had a conversation. And it's probably one of the more impactful pieces and experiences I had. And then another guy, Elliot-san, that I met that, the first time I interacted with him was a little bit hesitant because by that point I had met people that were like asking for money after having a little conversation or something. And he never asked anything of me. He just wanted to like share his story, tell me what his experience was, invited me out to Rumba over at Callejon de Hamel. And so I saw him a couple of times. We always, kind of were cordial and interacted, had a nice conversation with him every time after that. And then we were planning to meet up because he was going to introduce me to some street artists out there. And then I went to go try and find him the day we were supposed to meet up, and I couldn't find him. I walked around, went all the way up to his apartment where he showed me where he lived, and just couldn't find him. And so from that point on, I just never saw him again. And I was just like really thrown off by like how easily somebody can get lost in a space that they've been living in. You can easily lose communication or contact with someone just because you don't have the same access to things, whether it be cell phones, smart devices, and things like that. So that really affected me because I felt like that was one of the stronger relationships that I built. Then maybe Samuel, because he was someone I met on the first day too, the first night, and he was kind of sharing with me his experience. Going to school, from the person that's been educated, going to school for music. We had great conversations about music, connected over Anderson .Paak being one of our favorite artists. And so it was a really like fun experience after like a pretty long day. And I had a little rough experience somewhere in the middle of that. So it kind of eased me back into like, all right, I'm cool, I'm comfortable here. And so there are those kind of conversations, those kind of interactions that kind of are my favorite kind of relationships that I've built. But I think I have something about all of them really kind of stand out to me. My plans for the artworks are hopefully to kind of tour the artworks. Luckily, Norfolk Arts was the first institution to kind of pick up this exhibition. It's been in the works for 3 years since the residency started. So ideally, I'd love to kind of exhibit these works and kind of continue the story because I have so many images and experiences that I can kind of refer back to and studies that I can look back to and make more work. So I was really excited about the body of work that I made here. I'm looking at even more, the more I look at it, the more I'm looking at ways I can make different pieces to tell different stories about my experience there. So that's one goal. The other goal is to sell them. They're all for sale. You can find that on my art store, agencyartstore.square.site. And so they're all for sale. They're all available for purchase. And so this also is that. What I have coming up next, so as I mentioned, I'm in San Diego now and been there about 1.5 years. And so I've got some opportunities coming up in the fall. So I'm going to be doing an art fair out in San Diego, selling some works for a weekend. So that's in September. And then October, I'm going to be doing an exhibition at a space called Visual Gallery and Design out in San Diego. So that'll be something about like first exhibition, the early exhibitions since being there. We're really picking up some steam out in California. Looking forward to just seeing some things kind of grow from there. Yeah, that's what I got coming up. The best way to find me or connect with me is my Instagram. It's mbeyarts. mbeyarts. My website is also mbeyarts.com. And then from there, you can find my YouTube channel and all my other spaces, my online store. Instagram has all the links on there, so you'll easily be able to contact me and find me